The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Dylan J. Schlender presiding. Your eyes for the Honorable Judge Schlender.
Be seated. I ate 3 pork chops today. Welcome to the
Yeah,
Reels
but you
of
did it in a
Justice.
sleazy way. Selling
I've
pork
got
to
it.
the kids.
I've got to get paid, Mr. Foreman. Today, we are hearing the case of The People versus John Carter, a 2012 science fiction adventure film that transports a Civil War veteran to a mysterious and dangerous Mars, where he becomes embroiled in a conflict that will shape the planet's destiny. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Big Ben Haslar, you are representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, Alvin, Chipmunks, I don't mind losing cases. Honestly, I don't. I mind going into that court case knowing that I'm probably going to lose, as is the case with today's John Carter, a film that was much maligned at the time when it was released, mostly for its horrendous marketing campaign, but has since gone through several critical reevaluations to determine if we judged it too quickly and too harshly, leaning on to the fact that it operated under a massively inflated budget and a financial failure for the studio. Juror number 2, Ryan Luis Rodriguez, has said several times in this courthouse how he did not want to hear any insults hurled at the film, as it seems to come up anytime we discuss a film that has a massive budget. And juror number 3, Rob Maynard, has expressed publicly, "Oh, I'm digging it so far." So I've attempted to invoke juror nullification in similar cases, only to have my pleas fall upon deaf ears.
When did I
As
say
such,
what?
I needed to unwind.
What did I
As
say?
such, I needed to unwind. You said you were digging it so far.
I don't know.
I have it on record.
I don't know. All right.
You were very much in your cups. Lots of sailor talk.
So I needed to unwind, and I pondered how to best to represent the prosecution's case, and I decided to try a massage since people rave about them, but I've never really tried them. So I utilized a gift card bestowed upon me by one Mr. Schlender to someplace called the Lucky Ending or whatever, and I found myself hard to wrap my brain around the case, as the masseuse continually asked me where I wanted to get massaged. I don't know, girl. Isn't there a standard set of muscles involved here? Just loosen the knots or whatever you have to do. And while I appreciate that she's willing to customize my experience to my needs, always asking, "Are you sure you just want your back massaged? I can massage you anywhere you want," while I was trying to unwind, it was decidedly unhelpful. But I managed to come up with several decent arguments, I think, that should hopefully sway the jury away from their prejudices for the film. From its retina-burning beginning to its cringe-inducing ending, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Haslar. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Mr. Bouncin Bobby LePire. Please present your opening statement.
First of all, Your Honor, do you have any of those pork chops left? That would go really well with the salad bar.
You know, you're not wrong. Bailiff, more pork chops.
On its way.
I did have a really long-winded speech, as I'm wont to do, prepared. But recently, this court found the goddamn Lone Ranger not guilty. So,
Not all of
they
us.
decide that movie, devoid of any artistic merit or fun or anything that of interest or cleverness, to
Trains.
be not guilty. I'm good. I'm good to go. So, case dismissed. Thank you.
All right, all sides have rested. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, Mr. LePire. Mr. Haslar, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
As I puzzled over why my masseuse would inform me that if I tipped her, she could get more comfortable, I mean, that's a weird business model, isn't it? Why would I pay you so that you could get more comfortable? I'm the one needing to relax here. I thought about John Carter himself. the casting choice of Taylor Kitsch is weird. This guy can't act. And it's evident like right from the very beginning when he comes in and he's like, beans. First item on the list is beans. They're the musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. He plays a Confederate soldier. Does anyone really cheer for Confederate soldiers these days? I mean, I get that you want him to be tortured, having fought losing battles, but given his place in history, I think all we want him to do is die or have some sort of reawakening or something like that, because he fought on the side of having people enslaved. He is not a good person here. And these people are very interested in recruiting him, and he bolts every chance he gets because he's so tortured and haunted. And then he gets over to Mars, where all of a sudden he has superpowers. He can jump, and he jumps in a way where you can literally see and feel the wires, like the wire fu that they have to do him. He can wipe out entire armies. Well, sometimes. He only wipes out armies when he needs to. Otherwise, he can get subdued by one of these people rather easily and be in prison.
Objection.
It doesn't make sense. It's all over the map.
Okay, hold
The
on a second, Mr.
subduing-
Haslar.
The subduing only happens before he realizes his full powers on Mars. He's got to get used to the way gravity works.
No. You're wrong. He gets captured at the beginning, and then in the middle, he wipes out like a whole army of the green guys, and then he gets captured again at the end when he's chained to a rock.
Yes, but even by that point, he actually hasn't fully figured out what he's doing. It is only after that.
He just
when
wiped
those
out an
airships
army
show
of these
up.
guys. How does he not know what he's doing? And he's anchored down by this rock until he's not, until he wants to swing it around as a weapon. There's no consistency to the way that these powers work. And of course, it just leads the whole film to be mostly people telling him to jump everywhere. He throws himself into a war because he sees a woman who's hot, I guess. And this is sort of like a human versus human war, so it's not a race thing. None of this makes sense. I don't understand his motivations. I don't feel the love story, other than maybe they're both attracted to one another's bodies. I pass to the defense.
Well, okay, yeah. So, Mr. LePire, would you care to expound upon the choice of the main character, the actor?
I think Taylor Kitsch is good in this movie. He's been really bad in other things. I've seen Battleship.
You
But
did?
here,
My
I do
condolences.
exactly. I do agree. The beginning with the beans thing, he's not that good in. Once he reaches Mars, I think he's really good at selling his confusion over what's happening, where he is, and that sort of thing.
Objection,
It's,
he wasn't acting. Taylor Kitsch doesn't understand sci-fi.
I'll sustain that. That's too
be it
good.
as that may, be that as it may, that confusion still totally comes across on the screen, and that confusion is pivotal to the ending of the movie when he realizes when you realize he's just trying to get back. Because he's spent so long being confused on Mars that him trying to get back is a change. It's a moment of, okay, he has this amazing life there now that he's desperate to achieve again.
All right, Mr. Haslar, would you like to respond to that or move on to another point?
I'll let the jury chew on it. I don't think that point really stands. I don't think that anything that he does makes any sense as far as his motivation for like being with the woman or anything that he's doing. He's not a good actor, nor is the script written in a way that explains what he's doing. It's just like it's sort of like one of those blank characters that you can sort of insert yourself into, which makes it uninteresting. I would like to move on to the writing, though. As the masseuse asked me to flip over and was oddly insistent she can massage any muscle in the front, I was like, I don't know, chest, arms, legs. Honestly, the knots in my back didn't seem to be worked out yet. She didn't seem to know basic anatomy from the job. I pondered the writing and the execution. There are numerous moments where the characters will say, whoa, look at that thing over there, like a ship coming in or like a transforming structure. And then the camera will pan over and then we'll see the thing emerge or the change start to happen in a way that this person like sort of preconceived what was going to happen because visually the director wanted to show the effect happening in its entirety. But this execution falters. The therms at the beginning.
Objection.
Did you want to respond? Go ahead.
In Sergio Leone movies, specifically The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, our main trio stumble across a base in the middle of the desert that they should have seen for miles away. Movie rules: if it's not on screen, it does not currently exist.
It's like a ball that rolled behind the couch, and I'm a toddler.
Ooh, object permanence.
but but the point is, they say, "Hey, look over there," and the thing doesn't exist yet, and then it emerges. So how did they know the ship was coming out? How did they know the thing was going to eat John Carter's foot or whatever was happening there?
Now I'm just thinking, what if it actually ate his foot? How different this movie would be, because so much of his powers is jumping. You are right there. That would be a very strange movie that I'd want to watch, to be honest. Anyways, um, back to the point at hand. It's one of those things where you fudge it a little bit just so you can see it. Cinema is inherently a visual medium. Um, so is there a better way of writing that to make it just so you're all seeing it? Sure. But if it's one person noticing it and trying to get everybody else to notice it, which happens quite a bit throughout the movie, now that I'm thinking about it, it's a lot of everyone looking at one thing or another. You want both. You want people to be able to react, and you want to be able to see it.
All right, Mr. Haslar,
One of
if you'd
my-
like to- please go ahead.
One of my biggest gripes, I kind of skipped over, but I really want to get this out because it's so dumb. At the very beginning, the Therms give this guy a weapon, and he immediately tries to use it against the very people that gifted it to him.
I'm
like,
sorry,
in your
wait,
head.
Mr. Haslar, who's this guy? Are you talking about John Carter? Or is this a
He's
different
like
character?
one of the leaders of like one of the sides in the war that the Therms are kind of manipulating behind the scenes. They give him a weapon, so he has like the upper hand. It like goes onto his arm, and he immediately tries to use it against them. In your head, you're like asking questions right off the gate that the creators don't want you to ask. This plot is convoluted as hell with painful tropes such as the princess being forced to marry against her will, villains emoting their plans rather than just
Objection.
killing the
source
dude.
material
Go ahead.
invented a lot of these tropes.
Okay, I'll get to that. Let me get all my tropes out on a list, and I will assure you that surely some of these were very tired and old, such as poisons that simulate death. That's been done forever, and this one uses it. Shapeshifting into the person that they're attacking, although in this case I'm not really sure why, because there's no real advantage into like if I'm fighting someone and they shapeshifted into me, like the only reason to do that is to confuse someone else, which they don't do. The story about a story is convoluted as hell. The magical thing that allows complete communication, except planetary names, apparently. At least the universal translator in Star Trek or the brainfish in Hitchhiker's Guide attempt to make sense. This doesn't at all. You just drink some milk and all of a sudden you understand everything except for the names of planets. I have to imagine that some of these were old in the original novel, but they are certainly old now. Wouldn't you agree, sir?
Yeah, some of those probably Edgar Rice Burroughs did not invent, but some of these tropes that things like Star Wars or other space operas that have become so beloved over time, they borrowed heavily from this, and it's the question of what do you leave in to retain the source material so it's recognizable versus how much you change to make it updated for a modern audience. And if you change too much, well, why bother adapting it at all?
Well, I agree. And you're trying to work yourself into some sort of weird immunity there where it's like, hey, the source material created some of these things, therefore we get to use them. But we've already seen them a million times in Star Wars and Dune and other places. So, like, where is this at? Because we're watching this as a new work of art, a new film that is derivative of a whole lot of other films we've seen. And yes, it is based, those other materials have referenced the book, but still as a new film, it's all stuff we've seen before, and therefore we're bored.
That might be left up to personal interpretation. I think the movie's a little too long and is not flawless, but I'm not bored fairly often after the first 10 minutes or so, which could use some restructuring there. I'm never bored. But in terms of the tropes, cliches, stereotypes, whatever, there, it you do have to realize what you're getting yourself into. It's a matter of, okay, I've seen this before, sure, but are they using it effectively, and why are they using it at all? It's two-pronged thing. You have to when judging any movie, you got to meet it halfway. I'm not watching a drama, expecting to laugh like I am at a comedy kind of a thing. And I feel it's similar here. Some of those tropes are included because they're necessary moments from the source material.
All right, Mr. Haslar, if you'd like to
Another
continue.
one last quick point on the writing that always bugs me in this movie is how she's like so in awe that there's ships that sail on the sea in John Carter's world when they literally take a boat to go from one place to another. Like she can't imagine just doing that canoe but bigger in scale. It just bugs me so much.
Objection, it's not the ships, it's the sea itself. She's on Mars. Water is a very sacred resource. It is not. It is the water that she's in awe of, not the ships. The fact that they're sailing
It
on
seems
the
like they're
water
sailing
is
on a
what
lot of it, sir, in this movie. That river goes on forever, and there's a lot of water in it.
Sorry, repeat that. I didn't catch all that.
The canoe they're on, like, there's a lot of water in that river that's winding through to make it all picturesque. Like, there's tons of it. I mean, I get that's what they're trying to do, but visually, I see tons of water right there.
It's a river. It's not nearly the same majesty as an ocean, first of all. And again,
Wow, way to
Earth
dunk
is
on rivers for no
most of
reason.
it.
Order of the court, please.
All we see
And if it is
is
rare,
that
then why
river.
wouldn't we
There's
see?
no other water source?
If it is that rare, why aren't there like all kinds of cities like built around the edge of it, like the River Nile in Egypt or something like that? It's just out there in the
considered a
middle of
holy
nowhere. No one
place, that's why
cares.
they're doing the pilgrimage there.
Okay, I still think that whole oh wow ships that sail on the sea is dumb, but I'll let the jury chew on it. My last I got two more points.
Proceed.
This is sort of reminiscent of the last point, but as an entry into the pantheon of science fiction, we have this looks very much like Attack of the Clones that came out before it. It also looks like Dune with the ornithopters. It also kind of looks like Avatar with the blue guys being green in this one, but it's done worse. Even though all the money that they threw at this thing, it doesn't look as good. And when you're watching it, you can't help but think of the fighting in the Colosseum and in the prequels, or the ornithopters in Dune. It's too reminiscent of that. And what is also bad about this, I didn't want to harp on like the advertising too much because I think the film falls on its own merits, but the book is John Carter. Well, it's actually the Princess of Mars, but they wanted to call it John Carter of Mars, and yet they stripped it of that. So what kind of sense does this make from a writing perspective, taking that of Mars out of the title, especially when at the end they say John Carter of Mars? Did they just like forget to put that one at the end? Or were they thinking someone would stumble into the theater and be like, ooh, John Carter, oh wow, this is actually a sci-fi film, and wow, it's really good. Like, what was their goal here?
The marketing for this movie should have definitely left the of Mars in, because it sells it. I just calling it John Carter, well, that's a person's name. Who is he? What it's about? Like, clearly he'll be the main character because that's what it's named after. But unless you know the source material, you don't understand that that's what the film is. John Carter of Mars really adds that extra layer. But why the marketing decided to take that away? Who at Disney decided that? I can't answer that question. Andrew Stanton, the director, always wanted to call it Of Mars, so he insisted to keep it at the very end. That
Which
much
adds confusion, right? When you're watching it, like what?
I can
thought
see
this
why
was
that
John
would be
Carter.
confusing, but it's also the very end of the movie. So I think if you're confused by that,
Right,
then
you just
I
quickly
think there are
get there
other
at that point.
problems
Yeah,
at hand.
I agree. My last point, Your Honor, is Deja Thoris. She is the girl in this thing. She wears like a gold bikini in the original arts, which Princess Leia kind of ripped off. In this film, she wears sexy ribbons. She is not a good character. She's pretty. She's a good fighter. She knows everything. She's awesome at everything. There's nothing she sucks at. I hate characters like this. I know. Like, it's not really a Mary Sue thing because she's not really like the main character, but I just hate characters that are good at everything. They're not interesting. But I think most importantly, in the books, this character lays eggs. And that is not at all in this film.
What?
That would have made
Wait,
that
I'm sorry.
interesting.
Stop. What? Say
She
that one more
lays
time
eggs.
for the
I'm
record.
kidding. She
Okay.
lays eggs.
No,
Is this
go,
true?
go. Yes.
Oh my God. All right, keep going.
And just imagine how much interesting this would be if you're like getting your concessions in the theater and you hear people like walking out and being like, whoa, that chick totally laid an egg. Like you'd want to see that movie. There'd be so many interesting conversations that would be generated in the car rides home. Just imagining after that sensuous lovemaking they do, she goes into the corner, scampers, kind of squats and that pops this egg. That would have been so interesting. But instead, they leave me with nothing that you talk about for days after. And on that, I rest my case.
Oh
Can
my
we get a
God.
Carnosaur Star Wars crossover? Because this sounds brilliant.
I
That
don't
one's
know.
for free.
I don't know. All right, Mr. LePire, the prosecution has rested. You may now present any points you have in favor of the film.
Okay. My first exhibit is what I consider the best element of the movie, and that is Michael Giacchino's score. The score in this movie is great. It propels the action and the drama and the romance just by itself. You take
Objection.
away the
Objection. I don't want this point to stand unless Mr. LePire can hum a theme from it right now.
I am terribly tone deaf. You could play a song for me right now, and I would not be able to keep up with the rhythm of the song or the beat of that song playing at that moment.
All right, that's pretty clever,
Oh,
Mr. Haslar, but I'm going to overrule your objection. He doesn't have to sing in this court, so it does help. Mr. LePire, you're on thin ice. Please continue.
I promise you, nobody wants me to sing.
Our dozen listeners would love it, but please continue with your point.
I love the score here, where if you take away the dialogue and just play the score over it, you still get the exact sense of the mood of that scene. It's fantastic. It captures the sweeping epicness of the movie, even if other parts of the filmmaking process, such as the writing, as the my esteemed colleague would argue, don't capture that. The moment when they are on the river and they're doing this pilgrimage to figure out specific things about where Earth is in comparison and how to get them home and stuff. When they find the it's not really a tree, but I don't know what else to call it. When they find that tree, the music starts off with a little violin, and then more strings are added with a bass, stand-up bass and stuff, and then uh, other instruments come in. It's this giant, sweeping, epic, and you that sense of discovery and finding this thing that's going to help them on their quest is immediately felt just by the score.
As rebuttal, I would like to direct the jury to The Case of the People versus The Last Samurai, where everyone agreed that Hans Zimmer made a tremendous score, but it did not save the film.
Well, that's something for the jury to consider. I'll allow that.
Luckily, it's not my only point.
Oh, well, very good, Mr. LePire. Please continue.
Could you imagine if it was?
Just Bobby sweating like, oh no.
My next point are the sets of the movie. There is a lot of CGI. I'm not saying there isn't, but there's also a lot of practical sets. The airship cockpits in the beginning with two prologues, which I don't know why we need two prologues here, but that's a different story.
Whose side are you on?
The movie's flawed, but a flawed film does not make a bad movie. But those airship cockpits are tangible sets, so when they're being destroyed and crashing into each other, there's a real sense of danger and like violence to this going on. The Jeddick, Tars Tarkas, Willem Dafoe's character, his whole village it's a built set, so when they're wandering around the desert and stuff there, it looks hot and exhausting, and you feel it, and the practicality there helps you buy into this alien world.
All right, do you have a response to that, Mr. Haslar, the practical effects versus the CGI?
I would say I'm constantly being torn because I can tell that this was at this age and time where CGI was
Your
not
Honor,
quite perfect
this was
yet.
about the sets, not the CGI.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But this was at that point in time where the CGI just wasn't quite there yet. So you can very much tell the difference between what's real and what's CGI. And they're always fighting each other. And you, like, when you're focusing on any scene, it's like, yeah, that's fake, that's fake, that's fake. Okay, that's real. Okay, that's fake. And you're not focusing on the movie when that sort of thing is happening.
Objection. I do agree that there are moments, mostly due to the age of the film, where that happens, especially green screen, as I tend to find that is the first special effect to age, so to speak. Uh, but that alien puppy who can go faster than the Flash looks real. He is so textured and so adorable. I want one. I would love to have this dog.
Oh, I know what someone's getting
He
for
interacts with
Christmas.
the other humans perfectly.
He was fine. The green guy's not fine at all, and there's so many of them. Like they look so rubbery. It's unbelievable. The dog, like, yeah, sometimes he looks okay, sometimes he doesn't.
I
It's all
absolutely
over the
disagree. I
map.
think the Willem Dafoe's makeup, because it was practical effects and CGI combined to make the Martians. I think they look really good.
You
They
think their
move.
eyes look good? Like their teeth, their tusks, and the tusks are probably the real part. That's probably what's confusing about it.
Yeah, no, I think the tusks look great. Some of the tusks are broken off and they got jagged little bits. There's nothing smooth on them, giving it a sense of reality, if that makes sense.
It looks like plastic to me because it is. With the CGI overlaid on top of it, it's hard to swallow.
All right, we'll let the jury decide on that. Mr. LePire, if you'd like to move on to your next exhibit.
My next exhibit is the cinematography. Um, the the look of this film creates a truly alien planet. The various cities we see on Mars versus the various landscapes that we see all tie together. You don't ever feel like you're in completely different locations. Well, not locations because you are, but like completely different areas that couldn't exist together. Um, the cinematography just it captures these vistas, and it really gets that golden age of sci-fi feel down. Because along with being uh, uh, Andrew Stan's passion project, because he loves the books, this really feels like one of those 1950s uh, epic, slightly cheesy, really fun sci-fi movies, and this captures that the look of it really nicely, in my opinion.
On this point, I will actually agree with you. But unlike like those CGI aliens, it cost a cajillion dollars, so like it very well should look good and competent. It tanked the movie though; it didn't make it profitable because they spent so much money on all of these aspects, and to only have like one of them pay off, not worth it.
Yeah, but you guys found the train sequences in the Lone Ranger to be fun enough and memorable enough to get that movie off. And I know I couldn't
All
tell
of
you what
us.
happens in these train sequences. I remember nothing about them because the rest of that movie pisses me off. Why is Helen Bonham Carter in that film? She serves no purpose. Her and her one leg. What the hell?
Order,
Sorry.
please. We're not
Sorry.
relitigating the Lone Ranger. They had it stay in court.
And it may again on appeals of justice.
It very well might, but until then, please continue with your next exhibit.
My next one is the editing. There's a flashback sequence where John is about to fight a horde of hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of the Martians after escaping. And this is intercut with things only ever hinted at now being shown, about why he's really doesn't fight very often. Earlier in the movie, we see him run away from fights, choosing really not to, specifically on Earth, I should clarify, um, because he's so broken over the loss of his family. What happens to his family is intercut with this fight, and it's amazing. The editing, again, combined with the score, really sells why John Carter is a broken man and what happened to him, and how these discoveries of these weird powers, which this is the moment where he really figures out what he can do on Mars. It's just so invigorating and fun that if this doesn't sell you on the artistic merits and value of this movie, absolutely nothing will.
On the point of his wife back on Earth, yeah, I think it was probably edited well, but I am asking a lot of questions there. That is because the film's trying to show and not tell, which is usually a good thing. But in this case, I don't really, we're never really given a backstory with these people. We know he wears 2 wedding rings. We know his family died. We know he gives like one of his wedding rings to his new wife, which is that's kind of messy, but it doesn't add much to the story. Like, yes, he's a broken man. I get it. Okay, yeah, he's also broken from the war. There's nothing else beyond his backstory other than him being broken. There's nothing that I know about him beyond he was broken and now he has superpowers.
Yeah, but the whole movie is him leading to wanting to have a family again and to choose to not be living the hermit despondent life he was living earlier. He reaches out to family back on Earth. He does all this stuff to regain his family. Not the dead family, obviously, but a sense of family.
And use his nephew as bait. Yeah, thanks for that.
All right. Any further points before you rest, Mr. LePire, or are you all set?
I will rest with that.
Both sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Haslar, you may begin.
In closing, my dear chipmunks, John Carter is just as lame as my massage was. It doesn't dig deep into the tissues of its source material. It was produced by a studio that didn't believe in it. It's derivative of all sci-fi films that came before it, while trying to retroactively place itself at a point where it inspired these things. It was poorly planned, poorly executed, and understandably dropped like a stone at the box office. It's mostly just people telling John Carter to jump, and it deserves your ire. Oh, and Deja Thoris lays eggs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LePire, please present your closing argument.
Should Disney have left the of Mars in the title for the marketing stuff? Absolutely. That would have given a better idea to audiences what kind of movie this is. But more importantly, Andrew Stanton's love for the source material is evident throughout. Is the film a little too long and the story could use some slight light restructuring? Absolutely. But a few flaws a bad movie do not make. When one looks at the impressive technicals, the music, the effects, the editing, one must conclude this is not a bad movie and therefore not guilty.
Thank you all. Members of the jury, Mr. Maynard Bangs, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, and Mr. Beans. The first item is beans. Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Right this way. Do you suppose Deja Thoris is a Disney princess now too?
Yes, but
something to think about.
Despite not laying eggs, I suppose.
Okay, gentlemen. Oh boy, I've been dreading this episode for a while now because I used to think that this movie was awesome when I saw it opening weekend. And unfortunately, now that I rewatch it, it is a gentleman's 5.
Oh my God, you got Daredevil.
Yes!
Very sad to say it. I mean, if we issued verdicts on production design and score alone, this would not be guilty, but I am contemplating, gentlemen. I am contemplating. Rob, I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, it is interesting that Bobby's things were kind of aesthetic, and he did sort of balance some of the points about story, but they weren't really the points he wanted to bring up. Deja Thoris, by the way, is the unshakable feeling that you've seen this movie before.
No, it's not.
You should have done... Should have done something with like a thesaurus, like
that's way worse. Way worse. I'm glad I didn't do that.
No,
much worse.
Much better. You're absolutely right.
We're tough here. You've got this 100-year-old IP that no one's really ever heard of. Edgar Rice Burroughs carried a lot of clout before 1950. I think with that generation, the movies and TV shows produced on this stuff was very popular. Like in the 50s, I think he went out of vogue in like the 60s, basically. So
Once we got over Tarzan, that's when we kind of got rid of Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Right, exactly, yeah. And John Carter's not. It goes to show that, you know, Edgar Rice Burroughs, who did manage to make all these great characters that got turned into great movies. Tarzan, I think he's also did The Lost World, didn't he? No. Who did The Lost World?
That's Arthur Conan Doyle.
You're right. Well, too many people with multiple names. They got to stop it.
I agree.
They did. They're all dead. Don't worry.
Right. But you're right. There is Tarzan. But it's surprising that they didn't turn stuff like this into it, because in the 50s, what a no-brainer. So yeah, we are stuck with this movie that a lot of what happens is stuff we've seen before, but as Bobby said, this kind of set up the tropes. It's kind of tough. I don't know. Schlenzer?
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to give it a pass on, because it would have a proper claim to it. It's like, hey, this was the first, like, this is the first book that had a guy. I mean, like, this would, like, him being on a planet that affects his body, that predates Superman. You know what I mean? So, like, you could say Superman was even inspired by this.
He was explicitly.
Just listen to a great podcast all about Superman, One Track Mind, talking about the Superman movie. But that's
in which I don't mention John Carter of Mars, but that's okay. Let's just pretend that I did.
I'm trying to help.
Time to do it. I appreciate it, Dylan. I love you.
It's an anagram for usurped man.
Think
about it.
So anyway, so when it comes to the cases, I mean, Ben, it's unavoidable. He hits the nail right on the head. The main character, the main actor, a complete dearth of charisma. You know, it's not well presented. It's not particularly well acted. So that's definitely a point for Ben.
And Ben brought up an interesting way of describing it. He said the character's kind of a blank that you would superimpose yourself onto, and that strikes me as a hallmark of stories, especially of this kind of era where this came from, where, you know, the kid reading it would want to superimpose themselves and they're John Carter and they're jumping around. And so, like, the character traits of he seems kind of basic and one-dimensional because we're supposed to put ourselves in his shoes. And again, I think that's a hallmark of that time. I think you see stuff like that a lot in Jules Verne and
in novels and maybe video games, but movies? You think of another movie where you're supposed to superimpose yourself on the protagonist? I mean, I'm not disagreeing. I just can't think of one necessarily.
Like
Matrix.
Every single 50s sci-fi movie, you know, King Kong. I mean, can you tell me anything about the ship captain in King Kong?
You superimpose yourself over King Kong, the ape.
Yourself over the first mate who gets Fay Ray, obviously, and he's just a plain ordinary white dude. You know, there's nothing special about him. Yeah,
but is it a well acted part, too? That's it. That's the next piece of it.
Yeah, I think he does well. Now I'm talking about King Kong, not John Carter. I don't think John Carter, whoever plays John Carter, was his name? Taylor Kitsch. He doesn't do much.
Riggins from Friday Night Lights, which is the only good thing he's ever done.
Yeah,
he
no
is
one saw that
miscast in this film.
So nobody saw that. So he's not interesting at all, for sure.
And then I've got to give Ben credit too when he called Bobby out on humming the score, because when Bobby said the score was great, I drew a blank. I can't remember a single musical note from this.
Either.
Yeah, so I mean, I hate saying that because, you know, I love Bobby, but like if that's his first point, I'm like, oof, that's a bit of a miss for me.
I don't know if he said that was his strongest or his. Yeah,
he said it was his only point, and he started sweating, as I recall.
No, he didn't. Let's go back. So we talked about tropes, and this movie reminds us of so many movies that were built on it or inspired by it. But then to take those production designs and kind of make your designs based on them, like Ben mentioned, that's kind of stupid, right? Like the arena here does look like the Attack of the Clones arena. They could have made any kind of looking arena. I'm sure it wasn't vividly described in the book. So they could have done this whole interesting design, and they didn't go for it. The sort of ornithopter flying things, similar thing. They look like things out of, Dune and other sci-fi I've seen, and they could have gone a really quirky direction, but they didn't. They went with a design we've seen before. Those are things that aren't set in stone by the book. They could have made something that looked more unique.
Yeah, you could have definitely taken a lot of license with it. I mean, because again, it's 100 years old. Ryan, what do you got?
I mean, I think that where the movie only succeeds is the aesthetics. I think that the storytelling is kind of turgid, and it pains me to say that because I love Andrew Stanton as a director, not just as an animator, but I think he has definite skills as a director. I don't know. I just don't think that the material is up to snuff, which is a shame because he also co-wrote it. All right, let's start locking it in, guys. Rob?
Oh, why do I go first?
Okay, I'll go first, Dylan. Maynard. Don't worry. So I gotta say, I'm kind of like with Ryan. Like I remember enjoying this movie when it first came out. Caught it on the small screen, probably but now rewatching it again, kind of having to have more of a critical eye doing it for the show, and I was like, boy, I'm just gonna. There's a bit of a coin flip for me because there's a lot of deficiencies within. There are a few strengths, and so I wanted to lean on the case that I thought was better presented. And so today I'm going with Big Ben. So I'm voting guilty today.
Rob?
One of my biggest problems with this movie, and one of the reasons I think that it didn't do well, is what we talked about, is it just not really feeling very fresh. But I do recognize that's not really the fault of the source material. And I would like to see them do more adaptations of, this sort of period of sci-fi and try to popularize these characters that that we don't really remember anymore. The CGI was pretty much fine. I do think this is a relatively forgettable movie. I think that all the technical stuff is executed well enough, and it sticks enough as being an adaptation of a seemingly important book that I'll let it slide. So I'll go not guilty and pass it to Ryan.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, as I said, this is a gentleman's 5, but at the same time, it's at the high end of a gentleman's 5.
Ah.
And a gentleman's 5 is not bad. It is not good.
What's on the high end? Like, what's going to bring you back to this movie next time?
What's going to bring me? It all has to do with just I look at this purely as a vibes movie. It's not something that I can necessarily reconcile with as an evergreen story. I think that it's definitely the things that have ripped it off did it better than this did.
Right.
Which is not a good thing. That should not be the case, but it is the case. I mean, if I want to watch something like this, I could just watch Star Wars again, which I really like. Mm-hmm. So I can't fully condemn it, even though I think that Ben had a hell of a case, and I'm glad it's not unanimous. But I guess I'm going to have to go not guilty, because if I made the Lone Ranger not guilty, I might as well make this not guilty.
We can't keep using these things as standards.
Let's stay consistent about it. About it.
Heel eventually. Technically, we're not the same jurors. We're technically different people every week.
I would rather watch the Lone Ranger again than this. I would say that much.
Well, it is 20 minutes longer. I mean, that's something not in its favor. But yeah, I'm going to have to go not guilty. So let's go tell that very handsome judge.
Thank you. Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus John Carter, we find the defendant not guilty of being a bad movie.
The verdict is so rendered. A sequel entitled Welcome Back, John Carter is to be started immediately, and no expense is to be spared. Court is adjourned.
Oh man, Disney's already hurting. I don't know if they can afford that, but we'll see.
God, I know.
Hey, I'm that weird dog alien thing from this movie, John Carter.
Woola! His name is Woola, damn it.
What was it?
Woola.
Woola, that's my name. That's me. Yeah, I'm Woola.
Tremendous effort. We never phoned it in here, folks.
Alien dog. I can talk. Didn't in the movie. They didn't let me, but now I can speak for myself. Reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice for the Gabagool Gazette. That's right.
Nice.
And let's bring him out here. Bouncin Bobby LePire. What do you think of that jury's verdict?
I was sweating, not sure which way they would go. I really focused on the look and technical sides of the movie because cinema is inherently a visual medium, and the visuals and the score of the movie are so great that I was hoping they'd be strong enough to overcome the admittedly issues with the story. Next, if I were to redo this, I would definitely have gone into stronger aspects of the story a little bit more. But the visuals did win the day. Came out in my favor, so I'm very happy.
Yeah, you know who else was great? Willa. Willa was real great. And now let's bring out a Big Ben Haslar. What do you think of that jury's verdict?
Are you an intellectually distinct dog? I just have to ask.
The book was written 100 years ago, Ben, so how about me being in the public domain, you son of a bitch?
And you have to say you're white. You have to say you're white.
I am a white. I am a white. That's true. I am a white. I played by a white man. So.
In my opening statement, I said I knew I was going to lose. I think I made a very good case for the prosecution of this, though, but I just knew it was stacked against me. So I still need to unwind. Maybe I'll try a different massage at some other place that Schlender gave me. Let's see, the Lucky Tug or something. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to send you a couple text messages before you go to the next one, Ben.
Well, that's all the time we have from the courthouse here, but we're going to get back there to the studio for more post-trial analysis. Said Deja Ferris is a distinct feeling you've seen this movie before.
Oh, God.
Oh, I get it.
He's such a dog.
That's what you meant? Oh, God. Oh, God.
Now I get it.
That's why I had to tell it twice. I'm like, I know this is a good joke. Fuck everybody. This is a high quality.
Well, when you say it twice, it makes sense.
Joke that got funnier because you repeated it.
So,
that's our bread and butter around here.
With Disney around this time, Ryan, like this Lone Ranger.
They were trying really hard to bounce out of what was traditionally known as the Disney movie. And unfortunately, in doing so, they spent way too much on projects that had no chance whatsoever of crossing over with a mainstream audience, especially when they changed the fucking name of the movie and go, yeah, you know what? People don't like Mars. They like movies about the guys named John Carter. Like, what the hell are you doing?
It's one of the worst titles I've ever heard. I would have considered seeing a movie called John Carter of Mars.
I would go to see The Princess of Mars. I would totally.
Yeah,
I would see that.
And that fits in. That's
The
Disney. That is Disney. They're the House of Princesses. Just do it. Don't be chicken shit about it.
Right. And I
boys don't want to see a movie with a princess in the title.
That's entirely possible, but I mean, no one wants to see a movie of like it's called John Carter. I don't know.
Yes,
I had no idea it was a sci-fi movie.
Hey, Jimmy Carter's nephew.
Movie at all. And then around this time, I just watched it too. I watched Oz the Great and Powerful, and it was another stinker. I watched it thinking I could recommend it, and it was so bad I couldn't even recommend it. So
what you can't recommend it, but
I
you
can't.
can't.
I can't in good conscience. I not even as a curio. I can't. So
wow.
I don't know what they were doing wrong.
I've still only seen the first 15 minutes. I could not make it through that film, and it bums me out because it's Sam Raimi.
Doesn't get any better. Doesn't get any better. John Carter probably felt a little better to me because I watched Oz Great and Powerful right after it. And
I wonder can we get someone on to defend Oz the Great and Powerful, you think?
Very possible. Send us
Bobby,
a tweet.
Bobby, you're up. You're
Send
up,
us
Bobby.
a tweet. I'm sorry, they're not a tweet. Send us an X and put up an X. I don't know. What do you?
No, they're called posts now because they want to copy everything else.
Do I X a post or I post an X? I don't know.
All right, just send me a telegram.
Have you seen this X? Huh? Anyway, so Bobby, what's been keeping you busy lately? What have you been up to?
I'm prepping for Dragon Con. That is at the end of August. So lots of getting ready for that. That's going to be great fun. Beyond that, still, editing and writing reviews for Film Threat. It's been a little bit of a madhouse with the WGA and SAG strikes going on. So it's really difficult. We can still review the movies. It's really difficult to interview people and that sort of thing. A film festival I was going to be at in Seattle, it got postponed. Um, so it's been real wild dealing with all that. But things have been good, and of course, every week listening to my favorite show ever, Reels of Justice.
Oh,
Hey,
hey, that's us. All right.
I've heard of
Bobby,
that show.
I thought
Bobby.
I thought you were going to say Mind Pump.
Bobby, give us your hot take on the writer's strike.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Fuck the CEOs.
So hot.
Kind of hot take. But what I think is funny is that the celebrities can't really because promotion is part of their job.
They can't promote the films.
They can't
but
promote.
They can promote.
They can't promote
themselves.
the films, so they had to essentially leave all, premieres and stuff. And it's like,
Yep.
and it's like I'm not watching this movie if they're not going to pay me.
And it's sad for Cillian Murphy and those people like in Oppenheimer leaving. Man, that's heartbreaking because that's such a great movie and they work so hard on it.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, save for the recommendations, Big Bun.
Well, how about this, Bobby? Bobby, what's your least favorite movie of the year so far?
There you go.
Easy. Skinamarink.
No.
Oh,
See, and now he has to come back.
Skinamarink isn't a fucking film.
Yeah,
It is
no.
not a movie by any definition.
Oh my
It
god,
is
I
a
like
failure
this.
pile on top of fucking awful. I would rather have my eyes scooped out by birds while a orangutan is eating my brain than ever watch that again. But I have to because I already know an upcoming episode.
Wow, and I was just going to ask you about your great review for The Mistress, but this is much better.
Oh yeah,
And, I have to watch it now
It's
because
really
someone's
fun.
bringing it on the show. So, thank you
Dude,
for
the
that.
twist-
I'm not looking forward to it.
The twist in The Mistress is so damn cool. Oh my god, I
Twistress.
love that twist.
And they didn't call it Twistress, and they could have.
That's what I said at the massage parlor.
The
Ryan,
Twistress.
I have a
Deja Thor's
confession
when
to
you've
make.
seen the movie before.
That's great. Classic.
Ryan, I have a confession to make. My second least favorite film of the year is Asteroid City.
Oh, Bobby. Oh,
breaking his heart.
But now
Breaking
that's
my heart.
interesting because here you are defending
Breaking
a
my heart.
film with strong aesthetics, but not a great story. But there you're condemning a film that has great aesthetics, but not a great story.
He
It
just
has
said it was his
boring-
least favorite. He didn't say that he would condemn it.
Oh
Did
no,
you
I would
condemn it?
totally come on here. It's the
Oh,
second
well,
worst film
okay.
of the year.
I tried to give you an out, Bobby. Jeez, just go ahead.
No. I will come on here and tear that
Spit
movie
on
a new
Ryan.
asshole. Sure.
Oh, my
Um,
God.
Wes Anderson is now just relying on his, at this point, tired visuals, and the way he structured this movie doesn't work at all, one bit. But that's a different story for a different case.
You're right. So you've set up two cases. Is there a film that Ben likes and
And of course,
Dylan
there's
likes?
Rogue One coming up, right? We're going to do Rogue One at some point.
My
Oh
God,
yeah,
you're
we still
right.
need to do Rogue One because fuck
there
that movie.
is Rogue One. And then, well, okay, but then Bobby gets it's free choice with me. He could just throw a dart at a Charles Bronson board and he could prosecute it and I'll defend it.
He probably
In fact,
loves him.
we should have a Bobby LePire month, for we do Hell on Reels, January, Bobby LePire month.
He has
I'm
to
on
go
board.
through the whole gauntlet to get the Reels of Justice heavyweight title,
Yes.
which is also going to have to become a thing. Maynard, if you could start working on a graphic, maybe a sound effect.
Well, it's a work in progress. So
Yeah, we'll get there.
yeah. Now, Bobby, we always ask for recommendations from our guests for movies that you think people should see. So, what is a movie that you think people should see?
I am staying in house with this. In 2023, every single day I've been watching a Disney movie because it's the studio's 100-year anniversary.
Oh.
Some of these movies I've seen before, some I've never seen, and one I had never seen that I felt absolutely in love with is Third Man on the Mountain from 1959. It's directed by Ken Anakin, who would later go on the next year to do Disney's beloved Swiss Family Robinson. This is based on a book, and it's the movie Walt Disney was in Europe to research when he got the idea for the Matterhorn attraction in Disneyland. The movie itself is about a young boy in a rural Swiss mountain village named Rudy, and his dad died being a guide on mountains, so his uncle and mom have forbidden Rudy from being a mountain guy, but it's all he wants. Fate comes his way when Captain John Winter, a good friend of Rudy's, steps in and allows him to become a guide. And it's about the dangers that they face climbing this mountain called the Citadel. And this has some of the most spectacularly intense mountain climbing scenes I've seen in any film.
Mountain climbing,
Like, some of
Joel.
that has.
Mountain climbing.
Sorry, what was that?
Mountain climbing, Joel. Mountain climbing.
Yeah, some of this has to have been done on sets, but like you don't necessarily know when. Like some shots, sure, but there are moments where I don't know if this was a set or the actual mountain, and just that visceral feeling that gives you of being uncertain of whether these people are safe or not adds to the thrill. On top of that, the costumes, the set design, everything, the acting, it's all just perfect and great. I adore this film, and I don't know why I didn't grow up with it as I did other Disney movies. This is a hidden gem in the Disney film canon that everyone needs to see as soon as possible. It is on Disney Plus, and you can also find the DVD various places.
Rock climbing.
Yeah, I was gonna correct you.
I was gonna correct you too, but I decided to hold off.
He didn't say rock climbing. He said mountain climbing.
It doesn't make perfect sense, right?
I had to say mountain climbing. God.
Yeah, you had to say it. That's right. You had to say it.
Thank you, Ryan. God, Ryan gets it, which is why we are friends. So I don't even think I'm gonna let Big Ben get a recommendation after that.
Oh,
but,
wow.
All right, Big Ben, what have you got for us?
My two fans are eagerly waiting, I'm sure. I'm plumb out of recommendations that take place on Mars, so instead I'll channel my inner Ryan Luis Rodriguez and recommend a film that's still in theaters, and that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. In a world where most animated films look the same, with plastic-looking computer-generated characters with big eyes and bright colors, it's always such a treat to be able to look at something that's different. And Mutant Mayhem is definitely that. It looks grimy and dirty. It looks like the kind of thing artists doodle in the ledgers of their notebooks. It's dark, but perfectly illuminated with its projections of light. It's New York City, but the kind of New York City that you walk when you're in between your two destinations while still taking the time to appreciate what makes these subway stops and alleys and benches interesting. Not a frame of this film looks dull or uninteresting. Factor in the plethora of mutants, not just the turtles themselves, but the host of other colorful characters following Superfly around, and you'll find that not a frame of this film looks boring. Okay, you might say, but what about the story and the characters? Well, dear listener, Mutant Mayhem shines there too. They make the correct choice of not being held down by previous incarnations or focusing on the Shredder, and instead look at families that were created by Splinter and Superfly and the interrelationships of our beloved turtles, while borrowing just enough from the X-Men franchise to give you something to relate to if you've ever felt like an outcast, which I'm sure most people have at one point in their lives or another. So head on over to theaters for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
I'm so glad you saw it in the theater. I told you it was good.
You were right. It's cinema, as you said.
The animation
Is it your favorite movie
does...
of the year? Because that was effusive praise.
No, that's Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer
Okay.
is my favorite movie of the year.
He hasn't even seen it yet, and it's his favorite. Yeah, the turtle style looks cool, but I don't know if I could watch that for 2 hours. Like
well, good thing it's shorter than 2 hours.
Yeah, good thing it's only an hour
like
40.
45.
Hour 40? Well, I might just be able to make it if I bite a belt. So I know. Let's throw it over to Schlenzo. What have you got? What's your recommendation?
Well, you might get a sense of deja Thoris because I'm also recommending a movie that's purely for its visual aesthetics. So, as you know, I spend a lot of time on Tubi, and can you imagine my surprise when Tubi suggested I watch some little independent movie about North Dakota farmers? Well, I watched it, and it wasn't actually a Western, and no one even gets shot. It was actually a period piece, a drama. It's called Northern Lights from 1978. In a bizarre choice, the story is told from the point of view of a 90-year-old plus man that is seemingly not in the story he's telling. He found a journal and he's typing it. It's bizarre. So what are we watching here? It's the early 1900s in North Dakota, and we're watching farmers struggle, speak a lot of Norwegian, and ultimately they form a political movement in order to sell their grain at a rate that would allow them to thrive. look, this movie is
And
just
to
as
marry
boring.
their cousins.
Well, why would they want to marry their cousins?
Because they're so attractive. That was the whole point of this movie.
So, honestly, the movie is just as boring as I made it sound. However, there is a silver lining, and that is the masterful cinematography by Judy Irola. I don't know if I'm saying it. If I'm saying it wrong, it's probably making her eyes roll up. Huh? Hey,
he's on a roll again.
Thank you. Every shot of this black and white movie is a photograph, and every shot conveys so much more than the wooden and amateurish acting ever could. So take a breather from the excellence that Tubi normally offers and indulge in some pretentious artsy film that will allow you to swirl your brandy glass as you dazzle your friends with praise for the Camera de winner from the 1979 Cannes Film Festival.
All right, cool. Cannes, huh?
Oh, yeah.
What was the award?
The Camera de winner.
That's
and
water
so
Canada,
that
sure.
is
yeah.
So that is the award they give at Cannes for a first time. So best film from a first time filmmaker is what that one is.
Yeah, I speak a little French. You're an asswipe. Pardon my French.
What? Stop that.
Ryan, what have you got?
Over the course of 14 years and 7 seasons, the Venture Brothers established itself as the greatest television program to air on Adult Swim. The same channel, mind you, that aired Space Ghost Coast to Coast, with its unique blend of innovative world building, dense storytelling, complex character arcs, and love for cult pop ephemera. Naturally, once Warner Brothers launched their money pit of a streaming service, they began to cut creative corners, and the series was canceled despite having already been renewed for an 8th season. 5 years later, the series finally got a feature-length finale. My recommendation this week, 2023's Radiant is the Blood of the Baboon Heart. It makes me very sad because for the first time in years, we know that the story is, for all intents and purposes, at its very end. Finito. No more. Lay end. I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Either you've been tuning in or you haven't. All you need to know is that final chapters don't get much better. Godspeed, Brothers Venture. Godspeed. Radiant is the Blood of the Baboon Heart is currently only on Blu-ray, but 3 months from now it'll be streaming on what used to be HBO Max.
Nice.
And
Yes.
you're sure it's 100% done? This is like a Spike dies situation, or they're coming back?
They're coming back.
They're done.
They'll be back.
They're done.
Hulu reunion. There it comes. You wait. They'll do something. What is
Hey,
it?
Maynard.
Do they still have TV shows? They
Yep.
don't.
The best thing on Adult Swim is reruns of King of the Hill.
Interesting if true. You know, I would have really liked to see John Carter put on the silver screen a little closer to its original publication date, like in the 1920s as a silent film, or the 30s or 40s as some 12-part serialized adventure. Next week, don't miss the exciting conclusion of John Carter, Man of Mars. I read that Ray Harryhausen wanted to... Ray Harryhausen.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
To produce some John Carter films in the late 50s, but it never got off the ground.
That's true.
If it had, it might have been a bit like my recommendation today, 1964's First Men in the Moon, starring Lionel Jeffries, Martha Hyer, and the British acting abilities of British actor Edward Judd, who Wikipedia assures me is a British actor. It's based on the 1901 novel by the GOAT, H.G. Wells, about a scientist and 2 companions who travel to the moon at the end of the 19th century, only to find it inhabited by a society of hostile insect-like beings called Selenites. Although this is a less popular entry in the Harryhausen canon, the stop-motion animation effects of the Selenites and the moon cow caterpillar monsters are top-notch. And honestly, it's a Ray fucking Harryhausen movie. I'd watch a stop-motion animated man read a stop-motion animated phone book if it was stop-motion animated by Ray fucking Harryhausen. First Man in the Moon appears to be streaming on something called Fubo, but since I don't know what that is, you may have to settle for hard copy. But look at the bright side. This is the beginning of that Ray Harryhausen physical media collection you're always talking about starting. Yes, be the most interesting guy in the room at parties with your very own Ray Harryhausen physical media collection. And with that, we're all out of show. But we want to thank our guest, Bouncin Bobby LePire, for joining us. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you for having me, and I can't wait to be back.
We can't wait to have you back so you can lose Rogue One, Skinamarink, and Asteroid City.
Let's throw in 10 to midnight, too.
Yeah. You'll be the first man to lose to all 4 of us in a row. It's called the connection. So we hope you'll join us then, and we hope everyone else will join us too, as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Woola!
Damn, I was so
Deja Thoris, it was right there.
Feeling that he said that before.
Yes.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.